Business Podcast.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ochify, the Game Business Podcast. I'm your host, Yuichi Ochi, but you can just call me Ochify. I'm an old-timer with about 20 years of experience, mostly on the business and publishing side of the gaming industry. In this show, I take the latest industry news, things I've seen, and rumors I've heard, and I break them down with my own personal insights. We live in an era where simply knowing the news isn't enough anymore. Anyone can look up the news. What really matters now is having your own perspective, a unique lens through which you view the world. My goal here is to provide valuable insights for everyone involved in the business of games. But look, if we just talk about stiff business strategies all day, we're all going to get exhausted. So, toward the end of the show, I'll be sharing my exclusive top-tier food recommendations. My friends actually call me the B-grade gourmet king of East Asia, a title I wear with absolute pride. So what are we getting into today? I didn't personally travel to San Francisco for GDC or the recent NVIDIA events, but there has been a massive wave of AI-related news coming out of them. I have a lot of thoughts on this. To give you the bottom line up front, whether you are on the development or business side, I firmly believe that a future in which we leverage AI to its absolute limits is the only viable path forward. I'll explain exactly why I think that. And later in the Gourmet Corner, I'm going to talk about a recent trip I took to South Korea last week and share an absolute must-visit spot in Seoul.
Game business topic.
All right, let's dive into our main game business topic for today, the game industry and AI. Let's start with the first piece of news from NVIDIA's recent announcements. They revealed their new upscaling technology DLSS 5, which is slated for release in the fall of 2026. They put out a tech demo showing this off, using footage from games like Resident Evil Requiem and Hogwarts Legacy, and it immediately caused a massive ripple across the internet. Many gamers and developers started sounding the alarm saying, "Wait a minute. This generative AI is completely destroying the original art style of the games." The graphics looked significantly altered from the originals, and people were mocking it, worried that the AI was just overriding the artist's original vision. Well, NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang didn't hold back. In an interview with overseas media, he completely dismissed the backlash. He flat out said, "They are completely wrong." According to Huang, DLSS 5 isn't just some cheap post-processing filter slapped over the final image. It's a technology that integrates generative AI at the geometry level. He emphasized that this is content-controlled generative AI. This means developers have absolute control over the final look. They can adjust the intensity, the color grading, the masking. They could even make the whole game look like a toon shader or made entirely out of glass if they wanted to. The developers are in the driver's seat. Watching this unfold, my immediate thought was, wow. We are entering an era where the graphics board itself is going to do the heavy lifting via AI. You might not need to obsessively polish every single pixel anymore. If you build it to a certain standard, the hardware will carry it the rest of the way. That's the direction we are heading. Naturally, people's first reaction to new tech is often rejection. But mark my words, look at this 5 to 10 years down the line. The degree to which this becomes the absolute baseline standard will tell us exactly how the market has adapted, which brings me to my second topic, closely tied to the GDC event in early March. I was reading a fascinating article from PC Gamer that really highlighted the deep, gaping divide right now between the investors pushing generative AI and the boots-on-the-ground developers who are actively fighting against it. There's a major venture capital firm called Lightspeed. They've invested in Epic Games and a bunch of AI startups. Their head of gaming, Moritz Bayer-Lenz, was quoted as saying that it is shocked and sad to see the games industry, which has historically pioneered new technologies, suddenly demonizing generative AI. And the numbers back up this divide. Recent surveys show that a staggering 52% of game developers believe generative AI will negatively impact the industry. Why are they so angry? Bayer-Lenz attributes it largely to the massive waves of layoffs we've seen recently. There is a very real fear of job loss, and honestly, from the perspective of an engineer or an artist who just got laid off, it's completely understandable. It feels like I was fired because an AI can do my job now. You can't just tell someone in that position to happily embrace AI. Furthermore, the PC Gamer article points out other massive concerns. The unconsented scraping of artists' work, environmental impacts, and the flooding of the market with low-quality AI slop. I feel that pain. I really do. But as a business professional who is already using AI daily, my conclusion remains the same. We have no choice but to use it to its fullest potential. Think about coding. The manpower that used to require 100 people is shrinking. AI can't do everything perfectly yet, of course. But speaking from my own experience, when I need to draft a proposal or a pitch deck, something that used to take me 1 or 2 hours now takes me 30 minutes. My speed has literally quadrupled. Even if not every task gets a 4 times boost, on average, you are doubling your operational speed. If you think of AI as an incredibly useful tool for creating fun, its adoption is completely irreversible.
Ochify the Game Business Podcast.
Now, this incredible increase in speed and reduction in cost through AI and efficient processes is fundamentally changing the landscape, especially for smaller teams. And this leads me perfectly into a fascinating discussion about the micro-indie scene. I was listening to the Navic Gaming podcast recently, and they were dissecting exactly how these sub-$200,000 games, usually sitting around the $100,000 mark, are actually winning on Steam right now. They highlighted the strategy of a company called Polden Publishing, and honestly, it blew my mind because they are treating game publishing exactly like a venture capitalist manages an investment portfolio. They are not spending 5 years pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into a single masterpiece. It is a rapid-fire, short-term battle. They want to catch a viral wave, recoup their funds within weeks, and immediately pivot to the next title. To do this, they employ a strict fast follower strategy. They look at which genres are trending right now, take that established formula, and add their own unique twist. They aren't trying to reinvent the wheel or build entirely new genres from scratch, and their reliance on data over subjective emotion is absolute. In the very early stages of development, we're talking just 2 or 3 months in, they throw the game onto Steam playtest. They don't care if a developer says, "I want to make the mechanics more hardcore." If data from hundreds or thousands of playtesters indicate the game needs to be more accessible, they pivot accordingly. They won't move forward unless they hit brutal KPIs, such as a median play time over 40 minutes and a 90% positive rating. It is an entirely data-driven course correction. What really stood out to me was their extreme flexibility and willingness to embrace risk, depending entirely on the game situation. They have this incredible pragmatism. For example, they had a game called Fish Hunters. Development was dragging, and they just couldn't find that core, magical, fun factor. Instead of endlessly tweaking it, they made the call to release it early, bugs and all. They fully accepted that the reviews would be mixed. It was a calculated decision to just push it to market, recoup whatever development costs they could, and walk away if it failed. But then you look at another title of theirs, Final Sentence. This game was originally planned to be a quick $3 release just to get it out the door, but right before launch, a demo video went completely viral on TikTok. What did they do? They instantly delayed the release. They pumped additional funding into the game, expanded the content, added matchmaking features, and completely pivoted to sell it at a higher price point to capture that massive audience. That kind of agility is exactly what modern publishing requires. To make all of this financially viable, they keep their operational costs incredibly tight. They are partnering with developers in regions with favorable tax setups or different cost of living standards, places like Poland, Georgia, and Armenia. By doing this, they are making games 2 to 5 times cheaper than they could elsewhere. And on the publisher side, they keep everything strictly in-house. Production, community management, localization, quality assurance, and even creating those vital short-form TikTok videos. It's all done internally. The developers just focus on making the game while the publisher handles the rest, keeping the game priced under $10 to hit that perfect friend slop demographic, where friends just buy it on a Friday night to mess around. And this connects directly to the point I made earlier. The major publishers, particularly the Japanese ones, will be 5 years late in recognizing this shift. It's simply because their organizations are too large and weighed down by the inertia of their own incredible success stories. Take a company like Capcom. Their development culture is legendary. It's about meticulous craftsmanship, pouring everything into a single title and aiming to sell millions upon millions of copies globally. That is a fantastic culture, and it absolutely should be preserved. However, that approach alone cannot adapt to the new market reality, this hyper-fast, high-volume market that's emerging, fueled by the rapid advancement of AI. While it's not exactly a spray-and-pray strategy, it is a market that demands speed and agility that traditional large-scale development simply isn't built for. Their current methods, which have served them so well, are not a perfect fit for this environment. To put it in baseball terms, which I find very helpful, large-scale development like Capcom's is like building a baseball team consisting only of cleanup hitters. Every single one is aiming to knock it out of the park. It's a powerful strategy, absolutely. But the micro-indie approach and development that leverage AI to the absolute hilt are more like a team focused on stringing together base hits. They use speed, agility, and mobility to score runs incrementally. It's not a question of which one is better or worse. It's simply a fundamentally different style of baseball. While that specific micro-indie playbook from Polden isn't strictly about generative AI, the underlying philosophy is identical. The relentless pursuit of cost performance, agility, and efficiency. This is why the next 3 years are going to be a massive proving ground. It's going to be a battle to see who can push AI and these hyper-rational development methods to their absolute limits. And honestly, this is incredible news for all the creative people out there who previously couldn't make games because they lacked the budget or manpower. We are going to see a surge of new power players emerging from places like China, the Nordic countries, Turkey, and Israel. On the flip side, I worry about the major Japanese publishers for this exact reason. Historically, big Japanese corporations take about 5 years to even realize a paradigm shift has happened. By the time we hit 2029, the types of games hitting the market and the speed at which they are developed will look fundamentally different. If companies are still dragging along their old, bloated organizational structures and traditional development paradigms, they will just suffer. They won't be able to keep up. But ultimately, I firmly believe that this democratization of development, where anyone with a good idea can execute it efficiently, is heading towards a world that makes people happier. All right, the gourmet information. So I mentioned I was in Seoul, South Korea last week. Why was I there? Well, I had a few business meetings, but to be completely honest with you, the main reason was a fighting game tournament. It was the Arc System Works World Tour. I absolutely love watching fighting game tournaments live at the venue. The heat, the energy, the crowd popping off. There is just nothing quite like it. While I was in Seoul, I visited what might honestly be my favorite restaurant in the entire city. It's a specialized Gomtang beef bone soup restaurant called Hadong Kwan. This place is legendary. The menu is incredibly simple. You basically choose between regular and special. If you get the regular, it's just the beef. But you have to get the special because they load it up with all these incredible beef, tripe, and intestines. When they serve it, the rice is already in the soup. It's not seasoned, so you adjust the taste yourself by adding salt and a mountain of fresh green onions at the table. But here is the real secret. The kakdugi, the diced radish kimchi they serve on the side, is out of this world. The absolute best way to eat this gomtang is to take the juice from that kimchi and dump it straight into your soup. It completely transforms the flavor. It is heaven in a bowl. Here is the catch though. Their business hours are wild. They open at 7 a.m. and they close the moment they run out of meat. Usually that means they are shutting their doors by 4:30 p.m. You cannot eat here for dinner, so if you ever find yourself in Seoul, you have to make this your breakfast or lunch mission. I cannot recommend it highly enough. And that's going to do it for today's episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you think I'm totally off base about AI, or if you have a different perspective, please let me know. We're all human. We all make mistakes, and I love a good debate. Also, if there are any specific industry topics you want me to cover in the future, shoot me a message. You can reach out to me easily on X, formerly Twitter, at my account, Ochify. Our next episode will be dropping in late March. I'm thinking it's been a while, so we might do a deep dive into the recent Steam sales rankings and what they tell us about the current market. Until then, stay insightful, everyone. See you next time.
Stay inside.